This is Frankie Lynch, Saturn Girl. Like this video and subscribe to my channel. Comment below because I want to know what you think and it helps out with the algorithm. But as you can tell, I'm traveling right now. I'm not in my typical room. I'm in California, visiting where I grew up. It's just sort of surreal because I've been in Colorado for almost a year now. So, well, anyway, I wanted to talk about a fun little transit happening in just a few days. On July 10th, Mercury will enter Leo after having a sojourn in, watery and emotional Cancer. So Mercury is going to be picking up here. Now, it's the same day Mars enters Virgo, so we have a complex mix of energies. Please watch my video on horoscopes for Mars entering Virgo. That will be useful. We'll also talk about your horoscopes here for Mercury entering Leo. So anyway, without further ado, what is Mercury for us, pray tell? Mercury is how we think, speak, and express. He's business, messages, news, and media. What about Leo? Well, Leo's ruled by the sun, yeah? The sun is the center of its system. Everything revolves around the sun, at least it looks that way to us. So that's where Leo gets some of its, self-aggrandizing reputation. Yeah. It gets known as selfish. Now, these are stereotypes, and stereotypes just help us navigate, generalities in the world. But everyone's a unique individual, and we have to remember that. Not everyone will do all these sorts of things. So, Leo is the solar, right? Fire, fixed, masculine. It's the house of the sun. So he's independent, ambitious, and enterprising. Now it's fixed, so he's also stubborn and possessive. I had this joke about Leo Venus. If you break up with one, you better up and leave all your stuff in the middle of the night, Like, just leave all your shit there. You'll thank me later. Again, hyperbolic. It's a joke. Chill out. But you'll see what I'm saying. Anyway, what about Mercury in Leo? I wrote some fun phrases down. Number 1, my way or the highway. Very Mercury Leo. My thought process is the right one. We also see how to monetize, how to make a buck, right? Leo's about self-interest. And Mercury's the wheeler and dealer, isn't he? So finding other revenue streams, perhaps. Now, I also think of the salesperson, right? Someone who could sell hair dye to Mr. Clean, I also think of Tommy Boy, where he says he could sell a ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves. Right? I mean, who would eat a ketchup popsicle? Well, don't answer. Anyway, I think of bullshitters, right? Again, Leo self-interest. Mercury, mind and thought. When we're using the mind for stuff that we really want, we may embellish a little bit, Anyway, possessive of ideas, right? We talked about Leo being possessive and fixed, but when it's Mercury, it's the mind and the thought process. So I thought of that first. That was my idea, right? Whether or not they actually did think of it, of course, I'm trying to think of other examples, my thought process is best. This is the best way. Or they just don't bother considering alternate points of view. Anyway, I think of news about independent or selfish endeavors. For example, perhaps the Supreme Court and what's going on right now. I think of politicians trying to impose their particular narrow viewpoints on other people, whether or not it's even popular. I mean, I'm afraid for what's going on right now. Goodness. Anyway, another thing we think about is announcing records. Yeah, Mercury announcements, Leo record. Well, records are also a Mercury thing. Mercury in Leo is sort of like the best, the biggest, the most, right? Even the least. It's just got to be, it's got to win in some way. I remember Breakfast Club. You gotta win, Andrew. You gotta win. I always thought that was, anyway, it's funny to me. So, last time we had this aspect was July of last year, July 2022. And some examples of the whole record thing. So last year, a 170 carat pink diamond, oh my God, please, I want, was discovered in Angola. It's now referred to as the Lulo diamond. And it was probably the biggest one discovered in the last 300 years. That's amazing. Now, what else was going on? Record heat waves last year. What's happening now? Record heat waves this year. In fact, I think I was watching the news yesterday, and they said the global temperature record had just been smashed. In fact, the global temperature record, since we started recording it, had been smashed. So, it's a scary situation. Well, what about famous people with this, right? We should get a sense of how this manifests in individuals from some examples here. Okay, well, 3 recent presidents all had Mercury in Leo. George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, and Barack Obama. So some examples here. I have some quotes from them that are so indicative of Mercury in Leo. So George W. Bush, right? I'm the decider. I decide what's best. Now watch this drive. Yeah. I'm the decider. I decide what's best. Remember? My way or the highway. My ideas are the best. He also said, you're either with us or you're against us, right? That's the hard, fixed line that Leo draws. Bill Clinton, whether or not you agree with their politics, it doesn't matter. These are examples of Mercury Leo energy. So Bill Clinton, right? Remember that famous thing from his impeachment? It depends on what your definition of is. Right? Is? That's such a bullshit thing to say. Let me convince you that reality is malleable. It's almost like gaslighting. And then Barack Obama, he was giving a speech in the 2008 primaries, I believe, and he had a seal or something with his name on the podium while he was talking, and it fell off. And he's like, y'all know who I am, right? Like, do you know who I am? Or y'all know who I am? Those are very Leo Mercury phrases. It's like, my way is best. I'm the greatest, Anyway. I don't mean to criticize anyone, but these are wonderful examples. Also, does anyone remember OxyClean? Do you remember Billy Mays, who was like the spokesperson for a long time? Billy Mays here for OxyClean. Billy Mays here for Mighty Mendit. He had all kinds of products. But I was thinking to myself one day, dude, that totally sounds like Leo Mercury. Lo and behold, Leo Mercury, right? So very, very indicative. Anyway, now, well, let's talk about what this means for you. In fact, we're going to look at some horoscopes for each rising sign and get a sense of what this could mean. Well, if you want to look at it yourself, right, you have to look at the whole sign house. Mercury's entering for you. That means whatever whole sign house Leo is. So with whole sign houses, each house in your chart will begin and end with an entire sign, starting with the rising sign. For example, I'm Aquarius Rising. Therefore, my entire first house will be Aquarius. Even if I have my rising sign at 29 degrees Aquarius, it will still be my first house. So anyway, to find what number house Leo is, count starting 1 with your rising sign all the way till you get to Leo. For example, what's Leo for me? Oh, I'm Aquarius Rising, so Leo's the 7th house, opposite Aquarius, right? So we're going to go through each rising sign and talk a little bit about it, though. So Aries Rising. Aries Rising, that means Mercury's entering your 5th house. Now, what's that mean for you? Well, your mind is on your kids and perhaps having fun. So some things that immediately come to mind are school sports, having to cart your kids either to school sports or camps, summer camps, sports camps, because the 5th house is, things like fun, which includes sports, whether or not we want to do them. And taking your kids perhaps to do fun things, whether it's amusement parks or water parks or something, something summery, you see? Also, Mercury is like negotiation. So we see negotiating with our kids. Well, if you eat that broccoli, then you can have that frozen yogurt, It's so funny. I'm a Gemini and my daughter's a Gemini. And I'm always like, we're like hostage negotiating here. Also, you having fun. So maybe that's you going to your own sporting events or concerts or, who knows, whatever it is that dates. Yes, because the 5th house is romance. I love love. So, that's especially fun for me. But I'm not Aries rising. So you want to get out, kick up your heels, and enjoy yourself. What about for Taurus rising people? Well, your mind is going to be on the home because it's a 4th house transit. So maybe you're actively looking for a new place. Maybe you need to make repairs or updates. Could be a bathroom thing or I don't know, new lighting. Negotiating with landlords, roommates, property management companies. Also, messages from parents or grandparents. It could be business stuff, right? But it could be messages regarding things that you're just finding out. Perhaps it's things from your past, 4th house, right? We never told you that your grandfather was so-and-so, or, perhaps you had a different mother, or there was something about your origins that you weren't aware of that comes to light. It doesn't have to be something wild and crazy. It can be something relatively mundane, but it would be something new. So how about our Gemini friends? So, here. This is the 3rd house. So that's our mind on our hood, right? So this is connecting with the community. That could mean farmers markets, swap meets, or community events. Dealings or negotiations with friends or neighbors. Perhaps you have to fix the fence or whatever. Something to do with a property line that you're figuring out. I don't foresee it as something terrible, but, unless Mercury rules your 6th house, then perhaps it could be that. Also, taking day trips or staycations, right? Because the 3rd house is short journeys. Messages from siblings or extended family, right? The 3rd house rules brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, and cousins. You could be hearing from one of them, or one of them could be visiting, or they could ask you for money. Also, you could be focusing on school. That's very 3rd house. Perhaps it's final exams, a speaking or writing project, or creating content. Maybe you just get sucked into the news like I do, which right now that's not good for your mental health. What about Cancer and the 2nd house? Well, that means my mind is on my money and my money is on my mind. Like Snoop Dogg. This is the quintessential business activity because the 2nd house is our livelihood, right? And Mercury is the business person. So buying and selling stuff in general, or business strategy, The focus could be on your livelihood, which means reconsidering your income situation, perhaps budgeting for yourself, managing your own resources. You may have repairs that you have to do, taking care of our stuff. To me, I think of insurance policies and I think of regular maintenance. So get your car checked out. That might be more 3rd house, but still, this is our stuff. And we want to make sure that things aren't going to break in the middle of using them. So what about Leo? This is the 1st house for our Leo rising friends. In fact, the person I really like right now is a Leo rising. I thought I was just going to, have casual things. But then all of a sudden I like someone, and of course she's a Leo rising. Anyway, Mercury rejoices in the first house because it's the house of mind and the house of self, right? And mind is sort of the defining characteristic of humanity. It's what sets us apart from the animal kingdom, correct? At least that's what we say. So when I think of this placement in the first house, I think of being your own advocate. I think of representing your own interests, whether it's asking for something that you typically wouldn't ask for. I don't think of money here usually, but having the confidence to ask for a raise. Getting out of the house and out of your head, right? Your head is stealing your force. Get outside and be here in your body. Enjoy the moment, you see? Anyway, you could have a greater sense of confidence, contentment, and playfulness, after being stuck in Cancer in the 12th house. You probably felt a bit isolated. You'll likely be very persuasive and or clever. How's that working out for you? What? Being clever? It's from Fight Club. A new look, a hairdo, perhaps getting that Leo mane done, Leo rising. Oh gosh, she's got great hair too. I'll stop, I swear, I'm sorry. I like the way she smells. That's how I know I really like someone. Anyway, getting exercise or activity, wanting to work on your health or your physique. So now what about Virgo and the 12th house here? So to me, this is the mind in La La Land, right? The 12th house is self-undoing. This can be a little depressing, It could be a bit sad. Maybe you just need to be quiet or need some alone time, healing seclusion. Maybe you need to consider a particular problem and figure it out, and that takes some isolation. Maybe you just need some space. Maybe you need a reset. And this is where I really say, get out of your head. Go outside and stare at the grass. Zone out, trip on an ant. This is wonderful for resetting our minds and our brains. This is not a time to be busy. It's a time for reflection, for daydreaming, right? Enjoy it. Feel yourself in your body and relax during this one. Now, what about our Libra rising friends and the 11th house? Well, our mind is on our hopes, wishes, and dreams. That's what the 11th house is. Before it was ever friends, right? In fact, it's the people who help us achieve our goals. So we plan for the future. We ask ourselves, what is it that I really want? What is it that I really want to do with myself, with my life? Who can help me do that? Right? The 11th house is patrons, benefactors, our fans. And it became friends because it's people who are able to assist us in our goals. So, social activity also. I think of social media when I think of the 11th house, right? It's not just our connections, but, the social media presence as well, right? Advertising, meeting new friends, or hanging out with old ones. Maybe you find a new tribe, right? A new group of people whom maybe you share interests with. Maybe you find a new hobby or new interests, and that leads you to a new group. Anyway, what about our Scorpio rising friends? Leo is the 10th house, right? So that means our mind on our action, our praxis. Maybe you start looking for another job. Maybe you get thrown into a brand new position or role that you weren't expecting. Or perhaps you just start considering new goals or life direction. The 11th house is our aspirations, but the 10th house is what we do. You could get recognition for accomplishments, get some good press, right? People speak well of you, or professional training. I think of negotiation too with bosses or authorities because it's the 10th house. It could be with coworkers or customers, but I usually think of coworkers in the 6th house. So looking for compromises, like actively looking for compromises, right? Because, it is Leo, which is self-interest, but Mercury also tries to resolve things. Now, what about Sagittarius and the 9th house? So Leo's the 9th house for Sag. This means the mind is on what you believe. That could entail new ways of thinking, new values, ideologies, perhaps even religious beliefs. Exploring new philosophies or worldviews. That includes politics or political views. You could meet a new teacher or mentor, someone who introduces you to new lines of thinking. Also, trying to influence other people's beliefs, right? That's something that often happens with this. Taking a trip, right? Remember the 9th house is longer journeys. Maybe you go to a foreign country. Maybe it's just another state that's farther away. Also, interacting with foreign cultures or people. Learning a language, that's something that comes up too. Maybe you get a hair up your behind about learning Spanish or French or German, I don't know. Learning Canadian or American. What about our Capricorn Rising friends? The 8th house. Once again, our mind is on our money and our money is on our minds, but from other sources, right? The 8th house is investments. It's other people's money, right? So debt, taxes, investments, like I said, budgets, stuff like that. It also entails death, right? So I think of wheeling and dealing once again, borrowing and lending money, perhaps being overly persuasive and not taking no for an answer. It's like my mom, buying things on credit. Watch out overdoing the credit cards, okay? Because that's very 8th house. 8th house does rule credit and debt. Selling things or giving them away, right? Losses, financial losses. Budgeting or helping someone else manage their resources. I think of a lot of people sort of with 8th house stuff who do payroll or, financial planning or budgeting or stuff like that in a company. Also contemplating trauma and death, which could mean focusing on healing or processing old and painful memories. It could be facing fears, oftentimes about asserting yourself or representing your own interests, particularly your own financial interests, because no one else will. Well, what about our Aquarius Rising friends? That's me. And this is the 7th house of marriages and love and relationships and legal affairs, legal disputes sometimes, and adversaries. So I love this because I love love and relationships. And I really like someone right now. I like the way she smells. That's when I know I really like someone. I don't know if I already said that, but it came to mind again. So anyway, love is the focus. Maybe we show off to someone. Maybe we're being boastful or obsessive. I know I'm being obsessive. Wanting a partner. I mean, I really like her, but, we'll see. We've been on 3 dates. And anyway, when I get back to Colorado. So we could be facing legal disputes, like I said, most often with an ex-partner. Maybe it's someone you worked with, but I expect it to be an ex. Yeah. And either there's a money dispute or a legal dispute, or something needs to be resolved. There's some sort of conflict that's going on. Oh, and it's Mercury, right? So it could involve business or a business partner also. Now, what about our Pisces friends? This is the 6th house. Your mind is on your chores and your health situation. This is doing stuff you'd rather not do. You know, the 6th house is, it's the stuff if we don't do, things fall apart. If you have a list of things to get done, now's the time to do them. But be careful. Don't rush. Don't overextend yourself or run yourself ragged, because your immune system will likely be a bit weaker, a bit more fragile, and you could be susceptible to getting sick. You know, COVID is still going around. There's the flu, there's the cold. So please get plenty of sleep, nutrition, and hydration. Now, how about enemies? The 6th house rules enemies. You may have shit talkers at work, people spreading rumors or lies. It could just be blatant conflicts with coworkers, like, "That's my copy machine," or "Yeah, why are you touching that?" Or "Why was your email such and such?" Right? So, I always say pick your battles. The copy machine belongs to no one unless you bought it, but typically the company buys it. So, also rivals, rivalry. That's something we often see in the 7th house. And we'll see sports rivals oftentimes. People who are competing in something in particular. It's like a meeting of equals, right? Anyway, I hope these horoscopes were interesting for you and perhaps useful. Thank you for listening and watching all the way to the end. Some people just listen to this, and they wouldn't see some of my wardrobe malfunctions, which weren't bad, YouTube. Weren't bad, so no docking me for anything. So anyway, check out the description below for all my social media links, and also for how to contact me, because I do wonderful readings. In fact, I do the best readings, objectively. It's just science, okay? Now, I love you. And I want you to have a wonderful whatever you're having.